What's going on, everyone? Austin John Plays here, and today I'm going to be going over the entire Pokedex of Pokemon Legend ZA. Pokemon Legend ZA is out, and there are 230 Pokemon in the base version of the game as of version 1.0.1. They may do some patches and updates later before the DLC that introduces more Pokemon or easily obtainable or transferable via Pokemon Home, but for now, there are 230 Pokemon and many additional forms supported in the game. In this video, I'm going to be going over the base Pokedex, not the Mega Dex. So this video is going to be completely spoiler-free, as there's not going to be any new information revealed because, well, to tell you right up front, there is no new Pokemon. This game has 0 new Pokemon. There are new Mega Evolutions, but there are no new Pokemon. So it's just a question on what Pokemon are in the base game. I also know the Pokemon that are going to be supported in the future, and we do have a little bit of spoilers, but I'm going to save that for the end of the video. First up, you have your PLZA starters, your Chikorita, your Tepig, and your Totodile. I did a video earlier today talking about my opinions on all 3 of the starters and which ones you should get. You can get all 3 of them in one game without trading. Kind of like how it was in Pokemon Legends Arceus. You get your entire playthrough, and then in the post game, you can get the other 2, and you could get your first one. In fact, you could shiny hunt all 3 of them in the post game if you wanted to. So that's that. You're going to be seeing a lot of the X and Y decks here, as well as some Kanto and a lot of Gen 3, as those Pokemon were, you know, a lot of them got Mega Evolutions in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. Talonflame is back, and if you don't have a powerful fire or flying type on your team, Talonflame is great. During my first playthrough, I chose Feraligatr, and I didn't know that you could get a Kanto starter, which I do have a video on that coming out on exactly how to go about getting all the additional starters. Bunnelby is the first Pokemon that you have to catch, and it can also learn Rock Smash, which is very useful for getting around the world in the early game, but Diggersby, its stats are just atrocious. I do not recommend. Vivillon is here, and only this one form, I believe this is called the Meadow form. While all 20 patterns are coded into the game, and hopefully there's going to be a Pokeball pattern in the future event coming out, but as it stands for right now, it's just the one form in the game, no matter where you go. I've seen other people play in other languages, and I haven't seen any differences there. If there's anything that's not correct about this information, or I learn in the future that's different, I'll be sure to leave it in the comments section down below. By the way, shout out to Latin American Spanish, now officially supported language. Wepa. Beedrill's here, as is Mega Beedrill, who's a pretty darn powerful and early game attacker. Does great for that. Same thing for Pidgeot over here. Pidgeot does great damage, but honestly, I'd recommend Talonflame over Pidgeot. Ampharos, I mean, who doesn't love themselves a Mareep at the beginning of the game, right? Paltrat and Watchog are some of the very few Pokemon that have been missing from the Nintendo Switch library. With their inclusion, you can now complete an entire living dex in Pokemon Home thanks to these guys, and also the monkeys and a few others. The Roserade family is here yet again. I feel like they've been in every single Nintendo Switch title. The Gyarados line, because Mega Gyarados. By the way, neat thing, when you're going through your Pokedex, so obviously I have Shiny Magikarp here, and yes, I have a video on how to shiny hunt, and yes, the sound is back. But when you go into the entry, you can actually toggle if you want it to be the regular, and it remains that on this screen. If you wanted to go for a full shiny living dex, this page would just be shiny avatars, and I think that's pretty great. Barbaracle is here, a very forgotten Pokemon, as well as Starmie, other than, you know, Misty fans. Starmie's back. Bet you haven't thought about Starmie in a while. Its move pool has changed quite a lot. The entire Florges line is here, as well as all of the 5 different colors of the 3 different forms of this, as well as AZ, he has his Floette in the game as well. Go-Goat is here, but unfortunately you can't ride it. Pro tip, there is a quest for you to have an extra large Go-Goat. In the same way that you had to have a big Weasel in Legends Arceus, you have to have an XL Go-Goat in this game. So if you happen to see an Alpha Skiddo or an Alpha Go-Goat make sure you catch it. You're gonna need it later on. Speaking of catching, make sure you catch all 5 colors of Flabébé fairly early. It's one of the side quests. Meowstic is here. It does have its very noticeable gender difference between male and female. Pyroar, same thing, notable gender difference between male and female. Pangoro is here. In fact, Pancham is the first wild Pokemon that you see in game, and it is adorable. And then there's this garbage. Dedenne is here, the entire Pikachu line, and there is someone who trades you a Cantonian or original Raichu for an Alolan Raichu much later in the game, so you get 1 trade of a Raichu, which is neat. Clefable is here. Ariados, who doesn't have much impact on the story, but is actually in a pretty cool location when you encounter it. Arbok, bet you haven't thought about him in a while. Alakazam, who is a trade evolution, but you can catch wild Alakazam, so you don't need to trade for it. Same exact thing goes for Gengar. You can catch Gengars in like the mid game, but of course, you know, if you want to trade your Haunter for another Haunter, you can do that. I should probably do a trade codes thing like we did for the last games. Oh, the link cable is not in this game, so sorry. Scolipede is here. Aegislash, which you actually can get Dusk Stones fairly early, and you can actually get a Honedge within the first like 4 hours of the game, kind of like how it was in X and Y. So if you wanted to, you can go through the game with an Aegislash, which is a pretty cool Pokemon to have. And yes, it does have its stance changing forms in battle based on the moves that you're using. It's actually a little complex to learn, but it's a fun time. Great Steel type, great Ghost type. 10 out of 10 recommend. Victreebel and Mega Victreebel that was officially revealed this year. And let me tell you something, you're gonna see an Alpha Bellsprout fairly early in the game, and it knows Toxic, which it normally can't learn. I highly recommend getting that Bellsprout, as Toxic is very powerful in a real-time game. If we were to do the math, just mental math real quick, half turn is half the amount of damage, and then it doubles every turn after then, and then every one of those turns is multiplied by 3 seconds for the effect to kick in. That's what, 7? So it's what, 21 seconds every opponent faints? Not a bad thing to have. I've actually brought down some very powerful alphas with my Mega Victreebel. The monkeys are here for the first time on the Nintendo Switch, so you can complete your home decks. By the way, pro tip, you need to have all 3 of them for a side quest early in the game, so when you see them hanging around, go ahead and catch them. And I believe every location that you see the monkeys spawn at, all 3 of them can spawn in that same one location. So like, if you see Panpour and then you run away and you come back, there's a chance it's now Pansear. Very easy way to get all 3. Medicham is back. So here's a neat thing, because there's no abilities in this game, Mega Medicham's ability, which is called Pure Power, which is the exact same thing as Zumaril's Huge Power, that doubles its attack stat. Because that's not factored into the game, its original attack stat of 100 as Mega Medicham has actually been buffed in this game to 140. So it gains 40% more physical attack when it Mega Evolves on top of what it was already going to be getting. So they did compensate for its lack of ability with that Pure Power. Manectric is here. Gallade and Gardevoir are both back. By the way, if you are playing near launch, be sure to go to Mystery Gift and redeem your Gardevoir, because the Gardevoir Mega Stone you get very, very, very late in the game. It also is kind of expensive, so great way to have that Mega Stone early and have a strong Fairy type and strong Psychic type on the team. Houndoom is back and still somewhat forgettable. Altaria is here. Audino, Aromatisse, and Slurpuff. You do have to get their items in-game and trade for them. You cannot find their evolved forms anywhere in the wild. They are 4 of trade evolutions that I actually had to do to complete the decks. All the evolutions are here, and Eevee is available somewhat late in the game and very rarely early in the game. I am going to put out a video on how to get early Eevee team. I know that was a big hit for PLA, and that tradition continues in PLZA. But also, all the evolutions can be found in their alphas in the post-game, just like how it was in the last game, so that's neat. Lopunny and its Mega are back. Same thing goes for Banette. We have Vanillux here. It's actually one of the only like 4 Pokemon that I had to evolve from its first form, as Vanillish and Vanillux don't appear in the game anymore. Camerupt and getting its Mega is important for a side quest. Hippowdon, handy reminder, because it has to be said every game, that's its female, and that's its male. Neither of those are the shiny. There's always like a tweeter about it. It's like, oh, I found a shiny one. Why didn't it make the sound? Excadrill is here and is very powerful. 10 out of 10 recommend Excadrill on the team. Krookodile is here, but I still recommend Excadrill. Machamp is here and you can catch wild Machamp. You do not have to trade for it. Garchomp is one of the other Pokemon that I had to evolve myself, but I think you can catch him in the wild. You cannot catch Gabite. Gibble only appears at a very low level from what I've experienced. Carbink is here. Sableye is here. The weakest Mega, actually, and as well as Mawile. Oh, did Mawile also get a huge buff? Yes, it absolutely did. It goes from 380, instead of from 380 to 480, it goes from 380 to 522. So because it doesn't have huge power as its ability, its attack goes from 85, and then instead of 105, it goes to 147. So 47 per, like, again, about 40 to 50% more powerful at lack of its ability when it megas. So they did do right by Mawile and Medicham. Absol, which is one of your few gift Pokemon in the game. Riolu you could find very early in the game, get its affection up, and Lucario's a great Pokemon to have on your team, although you can find it in the wild later on. Slowpoke and Slowbro. Slowking with its item is one of the evolutions that I had to do, but here's a thing though, you do actually get to trade for a Galarian Slowpoke at some point, maybe. If you just use the Galarcia Reef, Cuff, whichever one gives you Slowking, I think that would also work for that Dex entry, so maybe you don't need to do that trade. Sharpedo is back, as well as one of my favorite Pokemon, Electros, but it doesn't have the Levitate ability, so it's not nearly as cool anymore. Dragonite and Mega Dragonite are here, although they are very late in the game, as you can imagine, because it takes a while for him to evolve. The Kanto starters are back. Stunfisk, as well as a Galarian Stunfisk that you can trade for, are in the game. Furfurrow, as well as all of its haircuts, that does involve a series of quests to unlock all of them. And then there's more quests. There's actually like this whole side arc for Furfurrow and its haircuts. So it's a fun one. My friend Malamar is here. Galgi, who was actually my first shiny in the game. So that's a pretty neat thing. We have the shiny one. Yeah, there he is. He looks even more toxic-y now. Clovitzer. Goodra is here. Gumi, I think, only spawns in the overworld when it's raining, which actually really tracks for how Gumi spawns, so it's a neat thing. The very forgettable Delibird is here, because for some reason it had to be. Sorry, Shady Penguin. Glalie and Frostlass are here, as well as Abomasnow, Avalugg, who's a pretty menacing alpha when you encounter it. The game actually does support Hisuian Avalugg, although I don't think you can obtain it in the game normally. Oh, I should have also said that the game does support Hisuian Sliggoo and Goodra, but again, I don't think that you can obtain them throughout normal gameplay. Is that the last of the Hisui mentions? Yes, that is the last of the Hisui mentions. Scissor is back, as well as Pinsir and Heracross. By the way, there's an early game trade for Heracross, I think for a Pikachu, and that Heracross is goated. 10 out of 10 recommend doing that trade. That Heracross is great at the beginning of the game. Omoga is here, as well as Hawlucha, Mega Hawlucha. Trevenant is here, Scrafty, Noivern, Klefki, Chandelure. There are 3 fossils in the game. Aerodactyl, which makes sense because you have Mega Aerodactyl, and then you have Tyrantrum and Aurorus. You can buy their fossils fairly early in the game, but actually reviving them takes a while. It's one of the side quests. Steelix is here, and I believe there is only one opportunity to catch a wild Steelix, and then you would have to trade for it with the metal coat otherwise. Here we have Aggron, Helios, Gourgeist, and Pumpkaboo. All 4 of its sizes are in the game, and its 4 sizes are classified as its different forms, which is separate from the Pokemon size classification. So you can have an alpha extra small, an alpha medium, an alpha large, and an alpha extra large, if that makes sense at all. But yeah, that's how it works. Tyranitar is here, but quick mention about Pupitar. You have to have a very high-leveled Pupitar at one point in the game for a side quest. So until you do that side quest, I recommend not evolving that Pupitar. And then for some reason, this is just the worst numbering. You have Greninja, and then you have Phalanx, and then you have Chestnut, then you have Skarmory, then you have Delphox. Like, what? We have Salamence, Kangaskhan, Drampa, who's a surprise to show up, as well as Phalanx was. Then we have Metagross, and then the legendary Pokemon from Pokemon X, Y, and now Z8. And yeah, that is all of the 230 Pokemon that are in the game. And that is all the Pokemon in the game. From here on out, I am going to talk about some Pokemon that are in the code that you may consider a spoiler or not. Vague description of what I'm going to talk about so you could decide if it's a spoiler. 4 Pokemon between legendaries and mythicals that are supported in the game's code but are not actually implemented in the game as of yet, or no one has found yet. If you consider that a spoiler, I'm sure there's a great video up here about Pokemon Legends ZA that you can go check out. And I'm pretty sure the timers are out right about...
You guys ready for the juicy stuff?
There are 4 Pokemon that are coded to be in the game. 2 of which have a Mega, so you could probably guess who they are. Deoncé and Mewtwo, including Mewtwo X and Mewtwo Y. All of them are coded to be in the game and currently supported, not yet obtainable. There's even side quests scripted to these Pokemon, but it doesn't really seem like there's a way to initiate those quests as of yet. The Deoncé one looks like it starts with obtaining the Deoncé-ite, the actual Mega Stone. And the Mewtwo quest, I think, involves a late game location, but no one's been able to trigger it. If that actually ends up becoming a thing, there's going to be separate videos on that. Also, Volcanion, the mythical Pokemon, is supported in-game, as well as Hoopa. Before the DLC that features Hoopa, which is just a little strange. So yeah, and that is the 4 additional Pokemon that are supported in the game. I don't know if they have dex entries, but they have coding. And now is the point for the mega spoiler. Yeah, there is something that I would consider a spoiler. I don't know if I would watch it. I lightly glossed over a Pokemon before that you have seen many times, but you don't know if you can obtain it. There's information on that, and it's fun information, but if you don't want to know anything about that, there's the little I button up there. Be sure to watch a different video. And the spoiler meter. This is what the spoiler meter is for, and it's gone now. Bye, spoiler meter. AZ's Floette. So the Floette with the black flower, who at the very beginning of the game shoots off like that crazy hyper beam. Yeah, that is an obtainable Pokemon with really interesting stats, which is why I want to talk about it. But there are 6 different Floette forms registered in the game. The 5 different colors, and then AZ's Floette. Regular Floette has a stat total of 371. Florges has a stat total of 552. And AZ's Floette is 551. So it's 1 point below Florges. And its stats are actually really comparable. A little bit higher special attack and a little bit lower special defense. So it's kind of like a more well-rounded Florges, if that makes sense. You can get it. It does take a while. You are not going to get this Pokemon before... If I had to put a number on it, and if I had to put a number, 70 hours of gameplay. You could get this Pokemon in the secret post game. That's all I'm gonna say about it. But yeah, that would be 70 hours probably minimum. And speedrunning, maybe 50. It's a bunch of lengthy stuff that you have to do in the very end of the game once you're done with the last main quest. And it's not immediately obvious. I'm sure the information is going to be out online. I'm going to cover it in like 3 to 4 weeks when you're probably there. But yeah, AZ's Floette, you can obtain it. We have no idea if you can transfer it into Pokemon Home. That's going to be a Pokemon Home question when that comes out. So that's for later. Well, great. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Our next video, we're going to be talking about all the Mega Evolutions in the game. So be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Until next time, Austin John out.
Man, they see me shining like I got the charm. Stay strapped, got that jet ball in my palm. Fell from the sky, guess I'm the chosen one. And if you need to know how, check out Austin John. Champion flow, flow, yeah. I got that champion flow, flow, yeah.